Today is my 71st birthday, and my son just broke my arm because I pushed his wife. It wasn't an accident, it was a punishment. Robert grabbed my shoulder with a strength I didn't recognize, twisted my arm behind my back until I heard the snap, and then dragged me into the utility closet while I screamed in pain. His wife watched from the hallway with her arms crossed, saying nothing, with that cold smile she always wears when she wins. He locked the door. I heard his footsteps moving away. I heard his voice telling her that I had finally learned my lesson. And then, silence, a silence so heavy it hurt more than my arm. I'm sitting on the floor of this dark room that smells like bleach and dampness, my left arm hanging uselessly at my side, swollen, throbbing. Every beat of my heart sends a wave of pain up to my shoulder. My blouse is stained with sweat and tears. Outside, I can hear laughter. Laughter in my own house, on my birthday. As if nothing happened. As if their mother wasn't locked up like an animal. 4 hours ago, we were all sitting at the dining room table. I had baked my own cake, decorated my own table, because no one else would. Brenda, my neighbour, came over with flowers and a genuine hug. She was the only one. Robert arrived late with that woman. They didn't even wish me a happy birthday. They sat down, ate, and talked among themselves as if I didn't exist. And then I saw something I had suspected for weeks. I saw her reach into my purse, which was hanging on the back of my dining chair. I saw her take out my wallet. I saw her pull out bills and tuck them into her own purse with terrifying calm. I stood up so fast I knocked over my chair. I yelled at her. I called her a thief. I told her she had been robbing me for months, that I wasn't stupid, that I had seen the withdrawals in my bank account, that I had found my jewelry in her room. She stood up, looked at me with those vacant eyes, and told me I was crazy, that I was a paranoid old woman, that no one would believe me. Robert stood up too, but he didn't defend me. He looked at me with disgust, with a contempt that chilled my blood. And he believed her. He believed her and not his own mother. So I did something I should never have done. I walked up to her, put my hand on her chest, and pushed her. It wasn't hard. I barely moved her. But she dropped backward as if I had hit her with all my strength, tripped over the chair, and fell to the floor, screaming. It was theatre. Pure theatre. But Robert didn't see it that way. Robert saw his mother assaulting his wife. And then he came toward me with a fury I had never seen in his eyes. He grabbed my arm. I tried to pull away. I told him he was hurting me. I begged him. But he tightened his grip and began twisting my arm behind my back. I felt the bone resist. I felt something inside me break. And then came the pain. A white, blinding pain that made me scream until I ran out of breath. He dragged me down the hall while I cried, while I begged him to stop. Brenda yelled from the doorway that she would call the police. But Robert didn't stop. He shoved me in here, into this windowless room, and shut the door. I heard the key turn. I heard his voice on the other side, calm, cold, saying the words I will never forget. Learn your place, Mum. You don't call the shots in this house anymore. I do. And if you ever touch my wife again, it will be much worse for you. I pounded on the door with my good hand. I screamed for him to let me out, that I needed a doctor, that I was dying from the pain. He didn't answer. He just left. And I stayed here, slumped against the wall, cradling my broken arm, feeling the swelling grow, feeling my fingers go numb. I don't know how much time has passed. It could be an hour. It could be 3. It's hard to tell in the darkness. The pain has changed. It's no longer sharp. Now it's deep, constant, like an animal gnawing on me from the inside. I think about how I got here. I think about the woman I was 30 years ago, when Robert was a boy and I worked double shifts at the textile mill so he wouldn't want for anything. I think about the nights I spent awake sewing other people's uniforms to pay for his private school. I think about how I sold the few pieces of my mother's jewelry I had to buy him his first computer. I gave everything. Everything. And now I'm here, locked up like a dog, with my arm broken by his hand. But then I remember something. I remember that this morning, before they arrived, I put my cell phone in the secret pocket of my apron. That old apron I use for cooking, the one with an inner pocket I sewed myself years ago. My trembling hand reaches into the pocket, and there it is. The phone. Small, scraped, with the screen half broken, but there. I take it out carefully, using only my right hand because my left no longer responds. The screen light blinds me for a moment in the darkness. I have signal. I have battery. I could call the police. I could call Brenda. I could call an ambulance. But I don't. Because right now, with my arm shattered, with my heart broken, with my dignity trampled, I don't want help. I want justice. And I know exactly who to call. I search my contacts for a name I haven't dialed in 15 years. A name I kept all this time without knowing why. Richard Harris, my lawyer. But not just any lawyer. Richard is the man who helped me when my husband died, and his family vultures tried to take everything from me. He's the man who fought for every cent, every property, every right I was entitled to. He's the man who told me 15 years ago, Mary, if you ever need someone to make a problem disappear, you call me, no matter how much time has passed. My fingers tremble over the screen. I dial the number. It rings once, twice. On the third tone, he answers. His voice is exactly as I remembered. Deep, calm, with that tone of a man who has seen too much. Mary, he says, without asking how I am, with no surprise in his voice, as if he had been waiting for this call for 15 years. Richard, I say to him, and my voice sounds broken, small, but firm. I need you to come. My son broke my arm. He has me locked up. He and his wife are stealing everything from me. And I don't want to forgive anymore. I don't want to be the good mother anymore. I want them to pay for every single thing they did to me. There's a silence on the other end. Then I hear him take a deep breath. Give me the address, he says. And Mary, I want you to listen to me carefully. Don't let those ingrates leave without paying. For everything. I hang up the phone. I stay sitting on the dark floor, cradling my broken arm, feeling something inside me shift. I am no longer the pleading mother. I am no longer the old woman who cries. I am the woman who built an empire from scratch. I am the woman who survived poverty, widowhood, and betrayal. And now, I am the woman who will collect payment for every tear, every blow, every humiliation. The laughter continues outside. But very soon, that laughter will turn into something else. The little room smells of old cleaning products and dampness. There's a leak somewhere I can't see, because every few seconds I hear a drop falling against the cement floor. Plop, 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 like a clock marking the time of my humiliation. My eyes have adjusted to the darkness, and I can make out the blurry shapes of brooms leaning against the wall, buckets stacked in the corner, bottles of bleach lined up on the shelf. This closet where I keep the cleaning supplies has become my cell. In my own house, the house I bought with my husband's life insurance money, the house I fought for in court for 2 years against his siblings who wanted to leave Robert and me on the street. My arm throbs with a dull ache that goes up to my neck. It's hot, swollen. When I try to move my fingers, they barely respond. as if they are no longer mine. I know it's broken. I know I need a doctor. But more than that, I need Richard to arrive. I need him to see what they did to me. I need witnesses to this injustice before Robert invents some story, before that woman completely poisons his mind. I lean against the cold wall, trying to find a position where the pain is more bearable. There is none. Every movement sends waves of agony through my body. I close my eyes and try to breathe slowly, as I was taught in those senior yoga classes I used to go to before she came into our lives, before everything changed. I think about the signs. All those little signs I saw and ignored because I didn't want to believe what they were telling me. The first was 2 years ago, when Robert came home with her hanging on his arm. Naomi, that was her name. A pretty name for a snake. She was 32 years old, 15 years younger than my son, dyed blonde, long, always perfect nails, expensive clothes that didn't match the salary she claimed to have as a secretary. She smiled at me with all her teeth when Robert introduced her, but her eyes were calculating, measuring, evaluating how much she could get out of me. At first, it was subtle. Comments about how big the house was for just one person, questions about my finances that she disguised as concern. "Mary," she'd say, "are you sure you can maintain this house alone? The property taxes must be super expensive. Robert and I could help if we moved in with you." I told her I didn't need help, that I managed my affairs perfectly fine. But Robert insisted. He told me it was for the best. That way he could take care of me now that I was older. Older. As if 70 years meant I couldn't think for myself anymore. They moved in 1.5 years ago. They brought their thing one Saturday morning in a rented truck. I gave them the 2 bedrooms on the second floor, the largest ones, the ones with private bathrooms. I kept my usual room on the ground floor. I thought it would be nice to have company. I thought I would meet my grandchildren someday, that I would have a real family again. How foolish I was. The first few months were tolerable. Naomi cooked occasionally, although she always complained that my pots were too old, that my stove didn't work, that we needed new appliances. Robert started coming home late from work, locking himself in their room with her, talking to me less. But I thought it was normal, that it was couple life, that I should give them space. Then things started disappearing. First, it was the silver brooch that had been my grandmother's. I searched the whole house, thinking I had misplaced it. It never showed up. Then it was a $50 bill I had tucked away in my Bible. After that, $100 from my purse. Small amounts that made me doubt myself. That made me think maybe I was losing my memory, as Naomi suggested with increasing frequency in front of Robert. One day, I found my jewelry box open in my room. The gold earrings my husband gave me for our 20th anniversary were missing. The gold chain I had bought with my first paycheck was gone. I went straight to confront Naomi. She was in the kitchen drinking coffee, calm, as if nothing was wrong. I asked her if she had seen my jewelry. She looked at me with that perfectly acted, innocent face and said no, that I had probably sold them myself and forgotten, that her grandmother did the same thing, that it was part of aging. I bit my tongue. I didn't say anything else. But that night, when they went out, I went into their room. And there they were, on her dresser, my earrings, my chain. There were even other things I hadn't realized were missing. A small ring from my mother, a bracelet I rarely wore. I took them all and hid them in a new place, in a shoebox at the back of my closet, under old blankets. But I didn't tell Robert. I should have. I should have called the police that very day. 6 months ago, I noticed something worse. My bank statements showed withdrawals I hadn't made. $300 here, $500 there. Small amounts that added up to thousands. I went to the bank. They told me the withdrawals had been made with my card and my PIN, but I hadn't made any withdrawals. I never use the card. I always take money out in person with the teller. I asked them if they had cameras. They showed me the video. It was Naomi using my card at the ATM as if it were the most natural thing in the world. I changed my PIN that same afternoon. When I got home, I asked Robert to talk alone. I showed him the bank statements. I showed him the photo the bank had given me of Naomi at the ATM. I told him his wife was robbing me. I expected him to be angry. I expected him to confront her. I expected him to defend me. But he did none of that. He stood up, snatched the papers from my hands, tore them into pieces, and told me I was crazy, that Naomi would never do that, that I had probably given her the card and forgotten, that I should stop making things up to cause problems in their marriage. That night I cried until I ran out of tears. My son didn't believe me. My own son chose a thief over his mother, and I stayed quiet again, because I was afraid of being kicked out of my own house, afraid of being alone, afraid to admit that I had lost my son forever. I hear footsteps upstairs, muffled voices, laughter. They are celebrating. They are in my living room, eating my food, in my house, while I'm down here with a broken arm. The phone is still in my hand. The screen went dark, but I hold it like a lifeline. Richard said he would come. I don't know how long he'll take. I don't know what he'll do when he gets here. But I know that for the first time in 2 years, someone is going to be on my side. Someone is going to believe me. Someone is going to make this end. Outside, I hear an engine, a car parking in front of the house. My heart beats faster. It could be him. It could be Richard. I get up as best as I can, enduring the pain that shoots through my arm. I stand up, leaning against the wall. I am ready, ready for this to end, ready for justice to begin. It all started the day Robert told me he had met someone special. It was 3 years ago, on one of those quiet Sundays where I was preparing lunch and he came to visit me like every weekend. He arrived with that smile I hadn't seen on his face since he was a teenager. A smile that made me happy for him, because after the divorce from his first wife, he had been so sad, so lost. He hugged me at the door and said, "Mom, I met an incredible woman. Her name is Naomi. I want you to meet her." I got excited. Of course I did. My son was smiling again. My son had found someone who made him happy. I asked him everything. How they met, what she did for a living, how long they had been dating. He told me they had met in a bar near his office, that she worked as a secretary for an import company, that she was fun, intelligent, that she made him feel young again. He didn't mention that she was 15 years younger than him. I would find that out later. He brought her home 2 weeks later. I had cooked all day. I made turkey and mashed potatoes the way Robert likes, green bean casserole and apple pie. I set the table nicely with the lace tablecloth that had been my mother-in-law's and took out the good china I almost never used. I wanted to make a good impression. I wanted her to see that he came from a decent, hard-working family, with values. When they arrived, the first thing I noticed was her clothes. Naomi wore a tight white dress, sky-high heels, a designer bag that I knew cost more than $1,000 because I had seen it in a magazine. For a secretary, she dressed very well. Too well. But I told myself I shouldn't judge, that maybe she had saved up to buy nice things, that it wasn't my business. She greeted me with a hug that smelled of expensive perfume. "Mrs. Mary, what a pleasure to finally meet you. Robert talks about you all the time." Her voice was sweet, soft, perfectly modulated. Her nails were long and painted bright red. When she let go of me, I saw how her eyes scanned the living room. She wasn't looking at me. She was evaluating the house, the furniture, the paintings on the wall, the size of the rooms she could see from the entrance. During the meal, she talked a lot. Too much. She told me she came from a small town in the Midwest, that she had come to the city looking for better opportunities, that her family was humble but honest. Everything sounded rehearsed, like a speech she had practiced in front of the mirror. Robert looked at her, infatuated, hanging on her every word, nodding like a lovesick fool. I tried to ask questions. I asked her about her job, about her future plans, about what she was looking for in a relationship. Her answers were vague, general, full of cliches. After eating, while I was clearing the table, I heard Naomi tell Robert in a low voice, "Your mum lives alone in this huge house. She must be very lonely. And it's dangerous for a woman her age to live without company. Anything could happen to her." Robert replied with something I couldn't hear, but the tone was worried. She was planting seeds. From the very first day, she was planting the seeds of what would come later. The visits became more frequent. Robert started bringing her every weekend. They always arrived empty-handed. She never brought a bottle of wine or a dessert. Nothing. But I cooked for them anyway. I welcomed them with open arms because I wanted my son to be happy. I wanted to believe this woman was good for him. Naomi started making comments about the house, that the walls needed paint, that the furniture was too old, that the garden was neglected. She always said it with a smile, as if she were trying to help, but I felt the poison behind every word. And Robert started repeating those things. "Mom, Naomi is right. You should update the house a bit. I can help you look for painters." I told him I didn't have the money for that the house was fine as it was, but he insisted. One day they arrived unannounced. It was a Tuesday afternoon, and I was in the garden pruning the roses. I heard the doorbell and went to open it with my hands still dirty with soil. It was Robert, and he had Naomi with him. I was surprised to see them because he never came during the week. "Mum, we need to talk to you," he said, with a seriousness that made me nervous. We went into the living room and sat down. Naomi took Robert's hand, as if looking for support. "Mum," Robert said, "we're getting married." I shouted with happiness. I got up to hug him. I was genuinely excited. I was going to have a daughter-in-law. Maybe I would have grandchildren soon. Maybe I would have a complete family again. How naive I was. How blind I was. But Robert wasn't finished. "And we've been thinking," he continued, looking at Naomi before looking back at me, "that after the wedding, we'd like to move in with you. This house is too big for you alone. We could help you with the expenses, with the maintenance, and you would have company. It would be good for everyone." Something in my stomach twisted. Something told me this was a bad idea. But I looked at my son, saw the hope in his eyes, and I couldn't tell him no. He was my only son, my only family. If this made him happy, I had to accept it. "Of course, son," I said. "This will always be your home. You can move in whenever you want." Naomi smiled. It was a quick, triumphant smile that disappeared from her face so fast I almost thought I had imagined it. But I saw it. I saw how she squeezed Robert's hand. I saw how her eyes shone with something that wasn't love. It was victory. They got married 3 months later in a small wedding that I paid for. Naomi wanted something big, elegant, at a luxury hotel. But Robert asked me to help them out financially because he didn't have enough savings. I took $8,000 from my savings account, money I had been saving for emergencies. I paid for the hall, the food, the photographer, even her dress, which cost $2,000. Naomi chose it without asking me if I could afford it. She just bought it and handed me the bill. On the wedding day, she was radiant. I was sitting in the front row, watching my son get married, feeling that mix of happiness and melancholy that all mothers feel. But I also felt something else, a restlessness I couldn't explain. During the ceremony, when the officiant asked if anyone objected to the marriage, for a second I thought about getting up, about saying yes, that I objected, that something about that woman wasn't right. But I stayed quiet. I swallowed my doubts, and I sealed my own fate. They moved in 2 weeks after the wedding. They arrived with boxes and more boxes of stuff. Clothes, shoes, new furniture they bought without asking me. Naomi completely redesigned the rooms on the second floor. She tossed my curtains and put up new ones. She changed the pictures on the walls. She moved furniture. She turned the sewing room where I spent my afternoons into her walk-in closet. I didn't say anything. I thought she had the right to make her space comfortable. The first few months were strange. I tried to give them privacy, but the house never felt big enough for the three of us. Naomi had rules. She didn't want me to enter their area on the second floor without knocking first. She didn't want me to use certain armchairs in the living room because they were her favorites. She started cooking some nights, and when I tried to help, she told me she preferred to do it alone, that I only got in the way in the kitchen. My kitchen. The kitchen where I had prepared meals for 40 years. Robert changed. Little by little, he stopped being the son I knew. He stopped hugging me when he came home from work. He stopped asking me how my day had been. When I tried to talk to him, he would look at Naomi as if asking permission to answer me. She was always there, between us, like an invisible wall that grew taller every day. And then the thefts began. The first theft I could confirm was my engagement ring. I kept it in a small red velvet box inside the top drawer of my dresser. It was the only thing I had left of my husband, besides the memories. A simple white gold ring with a small diamond that he had bought with 3 months' salary. It wasn't worth a fortune, maybe about $1,500, but to me it was priceless. One morning I went to look for it because I wanted to clean it, make it pretty, remember better times. The box was still there, but it was empty. I searched my whole room, thinking I might have put it somewhere else and forgotten. I checked every drawer, every pocket of my clothes, under the bed, inside my shoes. Nothing. I went upstairs to the second floor and knocked on their bedroom door. Naomi opened it wearing a silk robe that probably cost more than my monthly utility bill. She looked at me annoyed, as if I had interrupted something important. I asked her if she had seen my ring. She said no, with a look of perfect innocence. Then she added, "Mrs. Mary, you know that at your age it's normal to start forgetting where you put things. My grandmother was the same way. You probably put it somewhere and don't remember." Those words, those cursed words that she would repeat over and over again for the following months. Every time something disappeared, every time I complained, she reminded me of my age. She made me feel like I was losing my mind, like I was a senile old woman who couldn't trust her own memory anymore. And the worst thing is that I started to believe her. I started doubting myself. But the thefts continued. 2 weeks later, $300 I had saved in an envelope inside my Bible were missing. Money I was saving to fix the roof leak. I confronted Naomi again. Again, she told me I had probably spent that money and forgotten. "What did I spend it on?" I asked her. "I haven't left the house in days." She shrugged. "I don't know, Mrs. Mary. Maybe you gave it to someone. Maybe you hid it somewhere else. Sometimes older people do those things without realizing it." I went to Robert. I told him about the money. I told him about the ring. I begged him to talk to his wife, that something strange was happening. He sighed as if I were a heavy burden he had to tolerate. "Mum, Naomi isn't stealing from you. She has her own money. She doesn't need yours. You probably lost it and don't want to admit it. You're looking for someone to blame. His words hurt me more than any theft. My own son didn't believe me. My own son treated me like a liar. I decided to be more careful. I started keeping my money in different places, inside old books, in shoe boxes at the back of the closet, in the pocket of coats I no longer wore. But nothing worked. She always found everything. It was as if she had a radar for detecting where I hid my things. I lost another $500, then 200, then 700. In 6 months, she had stolen more than $3,000 in cash. But money wasn't the only thing. My jewelry was disappearing one by one. The pearl earrings my mother gave me before she died. A gold bracelet I had bought with my first paycheck when I started working at the factory. An antique brooch that had belonged to my grandmother. Each piece was a part of my history, of my life. And she was erasing them. One day, I decided to go into her room when they weren't home. I know it was wrong. I know I invaded their privacy. But I couldn't take it anymore. I needed proof. I needed to know I wasn't crazy. I waited until Robert left for work and Naomi went to the salon. I went up the stairs with my heart pounding so hard I thought I would have a heart attack. I opened their bedroom door. It was immaculately tidy, the bed perfectly made, not a single piece of clothing out of place. Everything smelled of that sickly sweet perfume she used that gave me a headache. I started searching. I opened drawers carefully, trying to leave everything as it was. I checked her closet full of expensive clothes, designer shoes, branded handbags. Too many things for a secretary. At the back of the closet, under a pile of sweaters, I found a wooden box. I took it out. It was locked. I looked for the key in nearby drawers. I found it hidden inside a sock. I opened the box with trembling hands. And there was everything. My engagement ring, my mother's earrings, the gold bracelet, my grandmother's brooch, all my jewelry that had disappeared over the last few months. But there was more. There was jewelry I had never seen, expensive rings, gold necklaces, men's watches that looked valuable. Where had she gotten all that? How many other people had she robbed? I also found documents, bank statements in her name that showed large deposits. $10,000, $15,000, $20,000. Where was all that money coming from? There were pawn shop receipts. She had sold some jewelry. Not mine, thank goodness, but other pieces. This was professional. She was a professional thief. And my son had married her without knowing anything. I took photos of everything with my cell phone. Photos of my jewelry in her box. Photos of the documents. Photos of the receipts. I put everything back as it was and left the room. I went downstairs to my room and sat on the bed, trying to process what I had discovered. I had proof. I finally had proof that I wasn't crazy, that she really was stealing from me. When Robert arrived that night, I waited for him in the living room. I showed him the photos on my phone. I explained everything. I told him where I had found my things. I expected him to be angry with her. I expected him to confront her. I expected him to finally believe me. But his reaction was the opposite. He became furious. With me. He yelled at me for daring to enter his room without permission, that I had violated their privacy, that those jewels were probably Naomi's and I just wanted to cause trouble. He snatched the phone from my hands and deleted all the photos in front of me. "I don't want to hear these ridiculous accusations again," he told me with a cold voice I didn't recognize. "Naomi is my wife. If you keep attacking her, you're going to have to find another place to live." Those words broke my heart. My son was threatening to kick me out of my own house. The house I had bought. The house I had fought for in court. All because I dared to tell the truth about his wife. That night, Naomi didn't come down for dinner. She stayed upstairs in her room. But the next day, when Robert left for work, she came down to the kitchen where I was having coffee. She sat down across from me with a smile that chilled my blood. "Mrs. Mary," she said in a soft, almost sweet voice, "I hope we've learned our lesson. This is my house now. Robert is my husband. He believes me, not you. So I suggest you stop inventing stories if you want to keep living under this roof." I didn't answer. I just looked at her. And in that moment, I knew I had lost. That she had won. That my son chose to believe a thief before his own mother. I got up from the table and went to my room. I cried for hours. But the tears didn't change anything. The thefts became more brazen after that. She no longer bothered to be subtle. One day I found my checkbook in her purse when she dropped it in the living room. It had 3 checks signed by me, checks I had never signed. She had forged my signature. When I confronted her, she told me I had given them to her and forgotten, that she had receipts if I wanted to see them. She didn't have receipts. But Robert believed her anyway. I checked my bank account and discovered that more than $15,000 was missing. Withdrawals I hadn't made, checks I hadn't signed. I went to the bank and tried to report it as fraud. But the manager told me I needed a police report. And if I filed a police report against Naomi, Robert would never forgive me. I would be completely alone. Then she started something worse. She started controlling me. She told me what times I could use the kitchen. She forbade me from having visitors without telling her first. When Brenda, my neighbor, came to visit me, Naomi would stay in the living room, listening to our entire conversation, making uncomfortable comments until Brenda left. Once she told me, "Mrs. Mary, I think it would be better if your friends didn't come over so often. It interrupts our family peace." I stopped inviting Brenda. I stopped going out. I stayed in my room most of the day. I felt like a prisoner in my own house. Robert hardly spoke to me anymore. When he came home from work, he went straight upstairs to the 2nd floor. We no longer ate together. I cooked for myself and ate in my room. They ordered takeout and ate upstairs. It was as if I didn't exist. 6 months passed living like this. 6 months where I became a shadow inside my own house. I woke up early, before they did, to use the kitchen without bothering anyone. I made my coffee in silence, ate something quickly, and locked myself in my room for the rest of the day. I would hear their footsteps upstairs, their laughter, their conversation that never included me. It was like living in a hotel where I wasn't welcome. Brenda was still my only contact with the outside world. Sometimes we would meet in the garden when Naomi wasn't watching. Brenda would bring me cookies, tell me neighborhood gossip, try to cheer me up. But I saw the worry in her eyes. I had become thinner, quieter, sadder. "Mary," she would say, "this isn't right. That woman is destroying you. You have to do something." But what could I do? It was my word against hers. And Robert would always believe her. I had lost my son. I had lost him completely. The boy I raised, the one I fed, the one I protected all his childhood, no longer existed. In his place was a man who saw me as a problem, as an obstacle, as something he needed to get rid of. Then came my 71st birthday. I didn't expect anything. I didn't expect a celebration, or gifts, or attention. I just wanted the day to pass without incident. But Brenda insisted on coming to visit me. She arrived at 2 o'clock in the afternoon with a bouquet of flowers from her garden and a tight hug. "Happy birthday, friend," she said, with so much affection that my eyes welled up with tears. We were in the living room when Robert and Naomi arrived. I was surprised to see them because it was early, barely 3 in the afternoon, and Robert never left work so early. Naomi brought a bag from an expensive bakery. She took out a small, almost ridiculous cake with one candle in the center. "Happy birthday, mother-in-law," she said, with that fake smile I knew so well. Robert didn't even hug me. He just said, "Happy birthday, Mum," without looking me in the eye. I blew out the candle because Brenda was there, and I didn't want to make a scene. We cut the cake. Brenda tried to make conversation, but the atmosphere was tense. Naomi kept looking at her phone, bored. Robert ate his slice of cake in 3 bites and said he had to make some work calls. Brenda stayed a little longer and then left, not without whispering, "Call me if you need me." When Brenda left, the house fell silent. I was picking up the dirty dishes from the living room when I saw something that made my blood boil. I saw Naomi reach into my purse that was hanging on the back of the dining chair. I saw her take out my wallet. I saw her open it and take out several bills as if it were nothing, as if it were the most natural thing in the world, as if that money was hers. Something in me snapped. Something I had been holding back for months, for years, finally exploded. I dropped the plates I was holding. The noise made Naomi turn around. Our eyes met. She didn't look scared. She didn't look guilty. She just looked at me with that contempt that had always been there, beneath the mask of fake kindness. "Thief," I said. My voice sounded strange, as if it came from someone else. "You're a damn thief. I saw you. I saw you take the money from my wallet, just like you've been stealing from me for months, years." Naomi stood up slowly. She put the bills in her pocket without any shame. "I don't know what you're talking about, Mary. You're seeing things again. You should go to the doctor. I think the dementia is progressing." "I'm not crazy," I yelled. "I saw you. I just chaebore you and I found my jewelry in your room. I know you've been robbing me. I know what you are." Robert came running down the stairs. "What's going on here? Why are you yelling, Mum?" "Your wife is a thief," I told him, pointing at Naomi. "I just saw her steal money from my wallet, and I found all my jewels that I supposedly lost hidden in her room. She's been stealing from me since she came into this house." Robert looked at Naomi. She put her hands to her face and started to cry. Perfect tears that ran down her cheeks without ruining her makeup. "Robert, I don't know why your mum hates me so much. I've tried to be good to her. I've tried to take care of her. But she's always accusing me of horrible things. I can't take it anymore." "She's lying," I yelled. "Please, Robert. Please believe me. Just check her pocket. The money she just stole from me is right there." Robert walked up to Naomi and put a hand on her shoulder. "Can I see your pocket, honey?" he asked her in a soft voice. Naomi nodded, still crying. She reached into her pocket and pulled out the bills. But when she showed them, she said, "This is my money, Robert. The money I earned this week. Your mum is accusing me of stealing her money, but this is mine. I have the ATM receipt, if you want to see it." Of course she had a receipt. Of course she had thought of everything. She had probably taken out money that morning just to have an alibi. She was so calculating, so cold, so perfect in her malice. Something in me completely shattered. I saw my son believing her again. I saw how he hugged her. I saw how he looked at me with pity and anger, and I couldn't bear it anymore. I walked up to Naomi. I put my hand on her chest, and I pushed her. It wasn't a hard push. I barely moved her, but she took advantage. She let herself fall backward, as if I had hit her with all my strength. She tripped over the chair that was behind her. She fell to the floor, screaming as if I were killing her. "She hit me, Robert. Your mum hit me." She screamed from the floor, clutching her arm as if it were broken. It was all an act, pure theatre. But Robert didn't see it that way. What happened next was so fast, I barely remember it. Robert grabbed my arm, my left arm. He squeezed so hard I felt his fingers sink into my skin. "How dare you hit my wife?" he yelled in my face. His breath smelled of coffee. His eyes were full of rage. "How dare you?" "Robert, let go of me. You're hurting me," I said, trying to free myself. But he squeezed harder. He started twisting my arm behind my back. The pain was unbearable. "Robert, stop. You're going to break my arm." But he didn't stop. He kept twisting my arm with that brutal force I never imagined he would use against me. I heard Brenda's voice from the door. She had come back because she had forgotten her glasses. "Let her go. You're going to hurt her," she yelled. But Robert wasn't listening. He didn't see. He only felt rage. And then I heard the snap. I felt something inside my arm break. The pain shot through me like a white, blinding lightning bolt. I screamed. I screamed so loudly I thought the neighbors would call the police. But no one came. No one except Brenda, who kept yelling from the door. Robert let go of me. He looked at my arm, hanging at an odd angle. I saw fear in his eyes for a second. Only for a second. Then the rage returned. He grabbed my other arm and dragged me down the hall. I cried. I begged him. "Robert, please, I need a doctor. You broke my arm. Please, son, stop." But he kept dragging me to the utility closet. He shoved me inside. I fell to the floor because I couldn't support myself with the broken arm. The pain was so intense that for a moment I thought I would pass out. I heard his voice from outside, cold, harsh, without a trace of the boy I had raised. "Learn your place, Mum. You don't call the shots in this house anymore. I do. And if you ever touch my wife again, it will be much worse for you." He closed the door. I heard the key turn. I heard his footsteps moving away. I heard Brenda yelling that she would call the police. I heard Naomi telling her to leave, that this was a family matter, that Brenda had no business being there. I was left alone in the darkness, with my broken arm, with my heart shattered, with the absolute certainty that I had lost my son forever. But then I remembered the phone I had hidden in the pocket of my apron, and I remembered the name I had kept for 15 years. Richard Harris, the lawyer who had told me that if I ever needed to make a problem disappear, to call him. I took out the phone with the hand that still worked. I dialed the number, and when Richard answered with that deep, calm voice, I told him exactly what I needed. Justice. Vengeance. Restitution. Everything they had taken from me, I would get back. And they would pay. They would pay dearly for every tear, for every theft, for every humiliation, for this broken arm, for everything. Richard arrived exactly 43 minutes after my call. I know it was 43 minutes because I counted every second in that dark closet, clinging to the phone as if it were my only connection to sanity. The pain in my arm had changed. It was no longer that sharp, blinding pain from the beginning. Now it was a deep, pulsating ache that reminded me with every beat that my own son had broken a bone. I heard the doorbell, then voices. Richard's voice was unmistakable, deep and firm, with that tone of a man who does not accept no. "I am Mrs. Mary Aguilar's lawyer. You have 30 seconds to open that door, or I will call the police for kidnapping and assault." There was silence. Then I heard Robert say something I couldn't quite catch. Richard's voice spoke again, harsher. "I am not interested in your version. Open that door now, or this will get very ugly for you." The key turned in the lock. The door opened. The hallway light blinded me for a moment. Richard was there, older than I remembered, his hair completely white now, but with the same imposing presence he always had. Behind him were Robert and Naomi, she with her arms crossed and an expression of annoyance, He with a pale face and clenched fists. Richard knelt beside me. His eyes scanned my swollen arm, the strange angle at which it hung, the tears on my face. "Mary," he said in a soft voice that contrasted with the harsh tone he had used outside, "we are going to get you out of here. We are going to fix this. Everything." He took off his jacket and put it over my shoulders. Then he took out his phone and called an ambulance. "She doesn't need an ambulance," Robert said from the doorway. "This was an accident. She fell. I just—" "Silence," Richard interrupted him without even looking at him. "Do not say one more word. Everything that comes out of your mouth from this moment on can and will be used against you." He looked back at me. "Can you walk?" I nodded. He helped me to my feet. The movement made the pain explode in my arm again, but I bit my lip not to scream. While we waited for the ambulance, Richard took out his phone and started taking pictures. Photos of my arm, photos of the closet where they had locked me up, photos of the key still in the lock from the outside. "Evidence," he told me. "All of this is evidence." Then he looked at Robert and Naomi, who were still in the hallway, watching. "I hope you have a good lawyer. You're going to need one." The ambulance arrived. 2 paramedics came in with a stretcher. They checked my arm carefully, put on a makeshift sling, and gave me something for the pain. As they loaded me onto the stretcher, I saw Brenda at the front door. Her hands were over her mouth, and her eyes were full of tears. "I'm going with you," she told me. Richard nodded. "You're a witness. I need you." At the hospital, they took me straight to X-ray. The doctor, a young man with a worried face, showed me the images. "Mrs. Aguilar, you have a complete fracture of the humerus. It's a serious injury. You're going to need surgery to put in a pin." He explained the procedure, the risks, the recovery time. I was barely listening. I only thought about Robert, about how he had done this to me, about how he had chosen that woman over me. While they were preparing me for surgery, Richard stayed by my side. "Mary, I need you to tell me everything, from the beginning, every theft, every abuse, every threat, everything." And I told him. I told him about the missing jewelry, about the stolen money, about the forged checks, about how they had isolated me, about how they had made me feel crazy. I told him everything while the nurses put in the IV line, while they prepared to take me to the operating room. "I have photos," I told him. Well, I had them. I took pictures of my jewelry in her room, of the bank documents I found. But Robert deleted them from my phone. Richard shook his head. "It doesn't matter. There are ways to recover deleted photos. Give me your phone." I gave it to him. He put it in his briefcase. "A friend of mine is an expert in data recovery. We are going to recover those photos, and we are going to get much more." When I woke up from surgery, my arm was in a cast from my shoulder to my wrist. The doctor explained that everything had gone well, that the pin was in place, that I would need physical therapy for months. Richard was still there, sitting in a chair next to my bed, working on his laptop. "How do you feel?" he asked when he saw I was awake. "Like I was run over by a truck," I replied. My voice sounded thick from the anesthesia. Richard offered a faint smile. "Rest. We start working tomorrow." I closed my eyes. But before falling asleep again, I asked him, "What are you going to do?" His answer was simple. "Justice, Mary. I'm going to get justice." I spent 3 days in the hospital. Richard came every morning with news. The first day he told me he had hired a private investigator to follow Naomi. "We need to know everything about her. Where does she come from? What has she done? Who else has she robbed?" The second day he brought me my phone. We recovered the photos, all of them, and they are pure gold. We have clear evidence of theft, forgery, and fraud. The third day, he arrived with a smile. Mary, your daughter-in-law is a professional criminal. My investigator found that she has a record in other states. She's done this before. She marries older men or moves in with vulnerable families, steals everything she can, and disappears. She has at least 3 different identities. Naomi isn't even her real name. I felt a mix of vindication and horror. Vindication because I was right. I wasn't crazy. She was exactly what I thought. Horror because my son had married a professional con artist and had no idea. Did you tell Robert? I asked him. Richard shook his head. Not yet. First, we need to secure your assets. We need to protect your house, your bank accounts, everything. Because when this explodes, she's going to try to take everything she can. During those 3 days, Robert didn't come to visit me. Not a call, not a message, nothing. Brenda did come every day. She brought me homemade food because she said the hospital food was awful. She told me what was happening at the house. Naomi is selling things, she told me. I saw her taking boxes out of the house and putting them in a car. I think she's preparing to run. Richard acted fast. He got a court order to freeze my bank accounts and protect them from any unauthorized access. He changed the locks on my house while they were out. He hired a security service so no one could take anything off the property without my authorization. Your house is protected now, he told me. Nothing leaves there without your approval. When I was discharged, Richard took me to a hotel. You are not going back to that house yet, not until we have everything ready. The hotel was simple, but clean. Brenda stayed with me that first night. She helped me bathe, change, and comb my hair. I cried in her arms. How could I lose my son like this? I asked her. She hugged me tighter. You didn't lose him. He lost himself. But you are going to get your life back. You are going to get your dignity back. The next day, Richard came with more news. I filed a civil lawsuit against Naomi for theft, fraud, and misappropriation. I also filed a criminal complaint. And Mary, there's more. The investigator discovered that she has a secret bank account where she has been depositing all the money she stole from you, more than $30,000. We are going to recover every cent. And Robert? I asked. Richard sighed. Robert is complicated. Technically, he committed assault by breaking your arm. We could proceed criminally against him too, but I understand that he is your son. The decision is yours. I didn't know what to answer. Part of me wanted him to pay for what he did to me. Another part, the part that was still a mother, couldn't bear the thought of sending him to jail. 2 weeks passed before Robert finally called me. 2 weeks where I lived in that simple hotel, going to physical therapy for my arm, meeting with Richard to plan the next steps, learning to live without the constant weight of fear and humiliation. When I saw his name on my phone screen, my heart raced. I thought about not answering. I thought about letting him suffer as he had made me suffer. But he was my son, and a part of me, however damaged, still needed to hear his voice. "Mum," he said when I answered. His voice sounded tired, broken. "Mum, I need to talk to you. I need to see you." I didn't answer immediately. I let the silence stretch between us. "Why?" I finally asked him. "Why now, Robert? 2 weeks passed. 2 weeks where I was in the hospital, where I had surgery, where I suffered alone. And you didn't come. You didn't call. Nothing." "I know," he said. "I know, and I have no excuse. I need to explain things to you. I need you to listen to me. Please." There was something in his voice. Something that wasn't the arrogance I had heard the day he broke my arm. He sounded scared, confused. Come to the hotel, I told him, and I gave him the address. But you come alone. If you bring that woman with you, I won't open the door. He arrived an hour later. When I opened the hotel room door, I barely recognized him. He had lost weight. He had deep, dark circles under his eyes. His clothes were wrinkled as if he had slept in them. He stood in the doorway, not knowing what to do. "Can I come in?" he asked. I stepped aside. He came in and sat on the only chair in the room. I sat on the bed, keeping my distance between us. "Naomi is gone," he said without preamble. "She left 3 days ago. She took everything. Her stuff, my expensive clothes, jewelry, money, my laptop, even the new appliances we had bought. She cleaned out our joint bank account. She left me with nothing." He looked at me with pleading eyes. "And before she left me a note where she confessed everything to me. She told me she never loved me, that she only married me to steal from my family, that I was so easy to manipulate that she almost felt sorry for me." I felt something strange in my chest. It wasn't satisfaction exactly. It wasn't revenge. It was more of a deep sadness to know that my son had finally opened his eyes, but at such a high cost. "I told you so," I whispered. "I told you from the beginning. I showed you evidence. I begged you to believe me, and you never did." "I know," he said. His voice broke. "I know, Mom, and there are no words to tell you how sorry I am. I was an idiot. I was the worst son. I did unforgivable things to you. I broke your arm. I locked you up like an animal. I treated you like you were crazy when the crazy one was me for believing her." Tears started falling down his face. "When I found the note, when I saw that she had taken everything, when I finally realized that you were right about everything, I wanted to die. I wanted to disappear from the shame." "And what do you want me to do now?" I asked him. My voice sounded harsher than I intended. "Do you want me to forgive you? Do you want me to tell you everything is fine?" "It is not fine, Robert. Nothing is fine. You broke my arm. My own son broke my arm because I dared to tell the truth about his wife. Do you have any idea how that feels?" "I can't even imagine," he said. "I can't imagine the pain I caused you, the physical pain and the emotional pain, and I know I have no right to ask for forgiveness. I know you probably hate me, and you have every right to, but I needed to see you. I needed to tell you face to face that you were right, that I'm an imbecile, that I ruined everything." We stayed in silence for a long time. I looked at my son, this shattered man who had been a sweet boy so many years ago, and tried to reconcile the two images. The boy who hugged me when he had nightmares, the man who had locked me in a dark closet. "Richard told me everything," I finally told him. "He told me she's a professional scammer, that she has a record, that she's done this before with other families, that even Naomi isn't her real name." Robert nodded. "They told me when they came to the house with an arrest warrant, but she was already gone, disappeared without a trace." He looked up at me. "Mum, I came here to tell you something else. I came to tell you that I'm going to testify. I'm going to testify about everything I saw, about everything she did. I'm going to help you get back every cent she stole. And if you want to proceed legally against me for what I did to you, I will understand. I will accept it. I deserve it." Richard told me I could file charges for assault. I told him that with the photos, with Brenda's testimony, with the medical records, we have a solid case. I saw him go pale. "But I don't know if I can do it. I don't know if I can send my own son to jail, even though part of me wants you to suffer as I suffered." "Whatever you do, I accept it," he said. "If you want me to go to jail, I'll go. If you want me to never talk to you again, I'll do it." Whatever you decide. Mum, this time, whatever you decide. I told him I needed time to think, that I needed to process all of this, that I couldn't make a decision like that right now. He nodded and got up to leave, but before reaching the door, he turned around. Mum, one more thing. I found something when I was cleaning up the mess Naomi left. I found documents. Documents that show she didn't just steal from you, she was planning to sell the house. She had forged your signature on property transfer documents. If you hadn't defended yourself that day, if you hadn't pushed her outside, she probably would have left you with nothing in a few months. That information hit me like a punch to the stomach. She didn't just want to rob me. She wanted to completely destroy me. She wanted to leave me on the street, without a house, without money, with nothing. Give me those documents, I told him. Give them to Richard. That's more evidence. Robert left, and I stayed alone in the hotel room, processing everything I had just heard. My son had finally opened his eyes. He finally believed me. But was it enough? Could I forgive him for everything he had done to me? I didn't know. Honestly, I didn't know. The next day, Richard came with important news. Mary, the investigator, tracked down Naomi. Well, the woman who called herself Naomi. Her real name is Leona Barnes, and they found her in another state, living with another older man, doing exactly the same thing. The police arrested her this morning. She's being extradited here to face the charges. I felt an enormous relief. She was finally going to pay. She was finally going to face the consequences of what she did to me. And the money? I asked. Can we get it back? Richard nodded. The bank account where she deposited your money was frozen. We will recover most of it. Not everything, because she spent some, but most of it, yes. Over the next few weeks, everything moved quickly. Leona, or Naomi, or whatever her real name was prosecuted. Robert testified against her. I testified. Brenda testified. Richard presented all the evidence, the recovered photos from my phone, the forged documents, the bank records, everything. The case was so solid that she couldn't even deny it. Her lawyer convinced her to accept a plea bargain with the prosecutor's office. 5 years in prison for fraud, theft, and forgery. On the day of the sentencing, I was in court. I saw her enter in handcuffs, wearing an orange prison uniform, without makeup, without her perfect nails, without that mask of superiority she always wore. She looked small, ordinary. When the judge read the sentence, 5 years in state prison, she showed no emotion. She just nodded. But as they were taking her out of the courtroom, she looked at me. And in that look, I saw pure hatred. Hatred because I had won, because she hadn't destroyed me, because I was still standing. I recovered $32,000 of my money. It wasn't the almost $40,000 she had stolen, but it was something. Richard helped me secure my house completely. He changed all the documents so that no one could touch my property without my explicit consent before a notary. He put legal locks on all my accounts. He made me sign a clear will specifying exactly what would happen to my assets when I died. But one decision remained pending. What to do with Robert? Richard pressured me to file charges. Mary, he broke your arm. That's assault. He deserves to pay for it. Brenda agreed. That man hurt you. He needs to learn that there are consequences. But I still couldn't decide. Robert came to see me every week for 2 months. Every visit was awkward, full of heavy silences and words we didn't know how to say. But he kept coming. He kept showing up with that look of remorse, with the red eyes of someone who doesn't sleep well, with that weight of guilt that was consuming him inside. One afternoon he brought me all the documents he had found in the room he had shared with that woman. papers that showed how she had meticulously planned everything. There were drafts of documents to sell my house. There were investigations into how much the property was worth. There were handwritten notes where she calculated how much money she could get before disappearing. She had even found a fake passport with her photo, but a different name. She had always had a planned escape route. "Look at this," Robert said, pointing to a small notebook. "It's all here. Dates of when she started stealing from you. Exact amounts. It even has a note about when she gave you the sleeping pills." "What pills?" I asked, confused. Robert went pale. "Don't you remember? There were like 3 months where you felt very tired all the time, where you slept a lot. She would make you tea at night. She said it was to help you rest better." My stomach churned. She was drugging me. Robert nodded. "Just enough to keep you confused, drowsy, so you wouldn't realize what she was doing. It has the name of the medication here. It was a mild sedative she bought without a prescription." All my rage returned. She hadn't just stolen from me. She hadn't just isolated me. She had drugged me. She had turned me into a zombie version of myself so she could rob me more easily. "This goes to Richard," I said, taking the notebook. "This is evidence of more crimes. She is going to pay for every single thing she did to me." Richard presented the new evidence to the prosecutor. The notebook was pure gold. It showed premeditation, planning, cruelty. The prosecutor called Leona again and offered her a new plea bargain. 7 years instead of 5, or go to trial where she would probably receive 10. She accepted the 7 years. I was present when she signed the new agreement. I watched her lawyer tell her it was her best option. I watched her clench her jaw, defeated. But while all this was happening, I was still living in that hotel. I still hadn't returned to my house. I couldn't. Every time I thought about going back, I saw the dark closet. I felt the pain in my arm. I heard Robert's voice telling me to learn my place. Brenda visited me often, and one day she said something that made me think. "Mary, that house is yours. You bought it. You fought for it. Don't let the bad memories take it away from you. You have to reclaim it, just like you reclaimed your money." She was right. That house was mine. Every brick, every window, every corner had been paid for with my work, with my effort. I wasn't going to let them take it away from me, not even in my mind. So one day I told Richard, "I want to go back to my house, but I want it completely clean. I want you to take out everything she left behind. I want you to paint the walls. I want you to change the locks. I want that house to be mine again." Richard hired a professional cleaning crew. They took out all of Leona's things that remained. All her clothes, her shoes, her beauty products, everything. They donated it to charity. They painted the second-floor walls a new color. They changed the curtains. They replaced the mattress in the room she had used. When I finally walked into my house 3 months after that terrible birthday night, it felt different. It felt clean. It felt mine again. Brenda helped me settle in. We made coffee in my kitchen. We sat in the living room, and for the first time in years, I felt at peace in my own house. But that peace was short-lived, because that night, when I was getting ready for bed, I heard knocking at the door. It was Robert. He was crying. "Mum, please, let me in. Please." I opened the door. He collapsed onto the living room sofa and cried harder than I had seen him cry since he was a child. "I lost everything," he said between sobs. "I lost my job because I couldn't focus. I lost my apartment because I couldn't pay the rent after she robbed me. I have nothing, I have no one. And it's my fault. It's all my fault." A part of me wanted to console him. He was my son. But another part, the part that still carried the weight of the broken arm, the confinement, the betrayal remained cold. "And what do you want me to do?" I asked him. "Do you want me to tell you it's okay? Do you want me to give you money? Do you want to live here again?" "No," he said, lifting his tear-stained face. "I don't want any of that. I just want you to know that I understand. I understand what I did to you. I understand that I ruined our relationship. I understand that you will probably never forgive me. And I don't blame you. I just wanted you to know. I just wanted you to know that I'm going to live the rest of my life carrying this, with what I did to you." He got up to leave. But something in me moved. Something that had been buried under the pain and the rage. "Robert," I called him. He stopped. "You hurt me. A lot. But that woman hurt you too. She manipulated you. She used you. She destroyed you. And even though what you did to me is unforgivable, I understand that you were not in your right mind. You were under her control." "That's no excuse," he said. "I chose to believe her instead of you. I chose to raise my hand against my own mother. That was my decision. My fault." He was right. But it was also true that she had expertly manipulated him. She had played with his insecurities, with his need to feel loved, with his fear of being alone. "I am not going to file charges against you," I finally told him. "But I'm also not going to forget what happened. I can't. Forgiveness, if it ever comes, is going to take a long time. Years, maybe." "I understand," he said, "and I accept it." I gave him the number of a therapist Richard had recommended. "Go to therapy. Process what happened. Learn from this. And maybe, just maybe, someday we can have something close to a mother-son relationship again. But that day is not today, not tomorrow, not next month." Robert left that night. I stayed in my living room, in my reclaimed house, thinking about everything that had happened. Thinking about the woman I had been before Leona entered our lives, a naive woman who only wanted her son to be happy. And thinking about the woman I had become, a stronger woman, wiser, more cautious. A woman who had learned that sometimes love is not enough, that sometimes you have to protect yourself first, even from your own family. The following months were about rebuilding, not just my house, but my life. I started going out more with Brenda. We would go for coffee, walk in the park, watch movies. I joined a book club at the local library. I met other women my age who had also gone through family betrayals, abuses, and losses. And I realized I wasn't alone. That my story, although painful, wasn't unique. Richard became more than my lawyer. He became a friend. He would come to visit me every 2 weeks to make sure everything was all right. He helped me reorganize my finances so that no one could ever touch them again without my authorization. He taught me to be more careful, more protective of what was mine. One day, 6 months after all the drama, I received a letter. It was from Leona, from prison. I opened it with trembling hands. In the letter, she didn't apologize. She didn't express remorse. Instead, she told me I had been lucky, that others hadn't been so fortunate, that she was good at what she did, and that if it hadn't been for my stubbornness, everything would have gone perfectly. The letter ended with a veiled threat. "I'll see you when I get out." I showed the letter to Richard. He read it and shook his head. "She's trying to scare you, to keep you afraid. Don't give her that power." But I wasn't afraid anymore. That letter, instead of scaring me, made me realize something important. I had won. She was in prison. I was in my house. She had lost everything. I had recovered my life. 2 years have passed since that terrible birthday night. 2 years since my son broke my arm and locked me in a dark closet. 2 years since I dialed Richard's number and changed the course of my life forever. Today, I am 73 years old, and I am sitting in the garden of my house, the house I almost lost, drinking coffee with Brenda, while the roses I planted last month begin to bloom. My arm healed. Not perfectly. It still hurts when it's about to rain. I still can't lift heavy things like before. But it works. And every time I look at the surgery scar, I don't see weakness. I see survival. I see the mark of a battle I won. Leona has served 1 year of her 7-year sentence. Richard keeps me informed. He tells me she's behaving well in prison because she wants to get out early for good conduct. But he has already put legal mechanisms in place to ensure that when she gets out, if she gets out early, there will be a restraining order preventing her from approaching me, my house, or my life. She won't be able to touch you ever again, he promised me. And I believe him. Robert and I have been rebuilding our relationship slowly, very slowly. He went to therapy, as I suggested. He got a new job. He moved to a small apartment on the other side of town. He comes to visit me once a month. He always rings the doorbell. He never enters without permission. He never stays for more than an hour. We talk about superficial things, the weather, his work, the news. We never talk about what happened. Not yet. Maybe someday. Maybe never. 3 months ago, he formally asked for my forgiveness. He arrived with flowers, knelt in my living room, and told me with tears in his eyes, "Mum, I know I have no right to ask you this. I know what I did to you is unforgivable. But I need you to know that not a day goes by that I don't regret it. Not an hour goes by that I don't hate myself for having hurt you. And I want to spend the rest of my life trying to be a better son. If you let me." I didn't answer him that day. I told him I needed to think. That forgiveness wasn't something I could just give like that, as if nothing had happened. And he understood. He left without pressuring me, without demanding anything. That night I thought a lot about what it means to forgive. I thought about whether forgiving meant forgetting, whether it meant trusting again, whether it meant letting go of the pain. I came to the conclusion that forgiving doesn't mean any of those things. Forgiving means deciding not to let the poison of hatred consume me. It means deciding that my peace of mind is more important than my desire for revenge. It means letting go, not for him, but for me. So the next time he came to visit me, I told him, "I forgive you, Robert, not because you deserve it, not because what you did was okay. I forgive you because I deserve peace, and I cannot have peace if I keep carrying all this rage." He cried like a child, and I let him cry. I didn't hug him, I didn't comfort him, I just let him process what I had told him. When he finally calmed down, he looked at me and said, "Thank you, Mum. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I promise you I will honor it. I will be better. I will be the son I always should have been." I don't know if he will succeed. I don't know if we will ever have the relationship we had before. Probably not. That relationship probably died the day he locked me in that closet. But maybe we can build a new one based on respect, on clear boundaries, on honesty, one where I never again have to doubt my own worth. My life now is different. It's quieter, smaller perhaps, but it is mine, completely mine. No one tells me when I can use my kitchen, no one steals my money, no one makes me feel like I'm losing my mind. Brenda and I see each other almost every day. She has become the sister I never had. We tell each other everything. We laugh together, we cry together, we grow old together. The book club at the library became my favorite space. There I met Irene, a 76-year-old woman who went through something similar with her daughter and son-in-law. We became friends. To share our stories of betrayal, of pain, but also of resilience, of how we got up when the world knocked us down. I also started volunteering at a community centre that helps older people who are victims of family abuse. I share my story there. I tell other women who are going through what I went through that they are not alone, that they are not crazy, that they have the right to defend themselves, that they have the right to reclaim their dignity, and I see in their eyes the same pain I felt. But I also see hope. Hope that if I could get out of it, they can too. Richard is still my lawyer, but more than that, he is my friend. He comes to dinner once a month. He always brings wine, and I cook something special. We talk about everything: politics, books, life. He never married. Never. He never had children. He confessed to me once that his job was his family. But lately I see how he looks at me with an affection that goes beyond professional friendship. And I, to my surprise, find myself looking at him the same way. I don't know if anything will happen between us. At our age, things are different. More paused, more meaningful. But I like having that possibility. I like feeling that my life didn't end at 71, that there is still room for new connections, for new joys. The house is beautiful now. I have been transforming it little by little. I changed the furniture on the second floor. I turned one of the bedrooms into a sewing studio. I started sewing again, something I hadn't done for years. I make quilts, tablecloths, clothes for the babies at the local hospital. It keeps me busy. It keeps me creative. It keeps me alive. The utility closet, that place that was my prison, I turned it into something else. I hired a carpenter to make shelves. I filled it with books, plants, and light. I put in a comfortable chair and a reading lamp. Now it is my favorite corner of the house. The place where I read, where I think, where I write in my diary. I transformed the space of my greatest humiliation into the space of my greatest peace. Sometimes I think about everything that happened and wonder if I could have prevented it, if I had been firmer from the start, if I had set clearer boundaries, if I had called the police the first time I discovered a theft. But then I realized that those questions are useless. I can't change the past. I can only learn from it. And I have learned so much. I learned that love does not mean allowing abuse. I learned that being a mother does not mean sacrificing my dignity. I learned that it is okay to set boundaries, even with family. I learned that my peace of mind is worth more than maintaining false appearances. I learned that I am stronger than I thought, that I can survive things I thought would destroy me. I also learned about the power of asking for help. For years, I felt alone. I felt that no one would believe me, that no one would help me. But when I finally dialed Richard's number, when I finally let Brenda fully into my life, I discovered that I was not alone, that there were good people willing to help me. I just had to be brave enough to ask for it. A week ago, I received a call from a social worker at the community centre. She told me that a 69-year-old woman had come in looking for help. Her son and daughter-in-law were abusing her. They were robbing her. They had isolated her. She was afraid. The social worker asked me if I could talk to her, if I could share my story. I went to the centre that same afternoon. The woman's name was Rebecca. She was sitting in a chair, hunched over, with her eyes red from crying so much. I sat down next to her and took her hand. I went through the same thing, I told her, and I survived. And you will survive too. I told her my story, the whole thing. I didn't omit anything. The theft, the abuse, the broken arm, the confinement, the betrayal. But I also told her the part where I called Richard, where I got my money back, where I got my house back, where I got my life back. When I finished speaking, Rebecca looked at me with eyes full of tears, but also something else, determination. "Can I really get out of this?" she asked me. "Truly," I replied. "It won't be easy. It's going to hurt. It's going to be terrifying. But yes, you can get out of this, and I'm going to help you." Now Rebecca is part of my life. I visit her weekly. I help her navigate the legal system. I accompany her to her lawyer appointments. I remind her every day that she is not alone, that what they are doing to her is not right, that she deserves better. And I see how little by little, like me 2 years ago, she begins to regain her strength, her voice, her dignity. This morning, while watering my roses, I thought about the whole journey, from that frightened, broken woman locked in a dark closet to the woman I am today. A woman who is no longer afraid. A woman who knows her worth. A woman who has turned her pain into purpose. I don't know what the future will bring. I don't know if Robert and I will ever have a true reconciliation. I don't know if Richard and I will become more than friends. I don't know how many more years I have left in this world. But I know this. The years I have left will be mine. They will be lived on my terms, with my dignity intact, with my head held high. And if my story can help one woman, 10 women, 100 women find the strength to defend themselves, to ask for help, to reclaim their lives, then everything I went through will have been worth it. My pain will have become someone else's power. My darkness will have become someone else's light. Because in the end, that's what we, the surviving women, are. We are silent warriors. We are the ones who fall and get back up, the ones who cry and then wipe their tears and move on, the ones who forgive not because we are weak, but because we are strong enough to let go of the poison of hatred, the ones who find beauty even after the most brutal storm. This is my story, the story of Mary Aguilar, the woman who almost lost everything, but who ultimately got it all back, including herself.